Welcome back. You watch your Morning Live. Now, the annual South African Men's Fashion Week is the only platform that provides and promotes menswear within the African continent. The fashion show happens twice a year, showcasing the latest collection of each season. This runs over a 4-day period from the 1st to the 4th of Feb. And joining us from our Cape Town studio now to share more is the founder and creative director of SAMW, Simon Diner, and fashion designer Genevieve Lyons. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. Simon, let's start this conversation with you. Let's talk about this year's Men's Fashion Week and kind of how it's evolved.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It's an exciting 5th installment of Menswear Week. What we've done is we've really looked at where we started and we've taken it back into a new venue. We've got a headline sponsor in the form of Lexus that's really allowed us to go out and do exciting new things. We've looked at our designer lineup. We've got retail-ready designers. We've got conceptual designers. We've got quite a few new names. We've got all the regular designers that everybody wants to see. So it's going to be an exciting few days in Cape Town next week.
There's something that you talked about. You talked about a new sponsor and you've moved to a new venue. What does that say about the event?
I think, being our 5th installment, we really are starting to mature, and also the way it's growing and the perception of South African men are now starting to see that there is truly an available selection of menswear that they can buy, and a lot of people are proud and they're actively seeking out locally designed menswear.
Genevieve, let me bring you into this conversation because I think Simon mentioned something really interesting, this perception of menswear. Let's be honest, it has been a battle for men. We know internationally there are massive designs, there are big designers, but locally men have, and also maybe even from an industry perspective, we've been struggling.
Yeah, look, I think our menswear industry is very young. We're still growing and we are there to push boundaries. As a designer and SA Menswear Week, we're all a collective coming together to build African fashion, to take it further and to become relevant on the global landscape. And I think that's been more relevant than ever now with African fashion being on the forefront of international trend forecasting. So I think our menswear industry is definitely growing with every season that we continue on breaking boundaries and innovating.
Let's talk about seasons because as a designer, as part of the lineup, what do you keep top of mind when you are putting your line together? Are you looking at trends? Are you looking at where we are as South Africa? Are you trying to find a balance between the two?
Well, I think for every designer, it's very important to know what's going on around you. Trend forecasting, business-wise, on the global landscape, everything is important. As a conceptual designer myself, I tend not to be too based on trends, but rather to design to an aesthetic and also a conceptual-based story. So it's about telling stories on the runway. And I think with this collection, we're actually not going to a season. We're kind of collaborating with our winter and our previous summer collection and putting it into a conceptual collection to kind of revisit a previous idea and just to bring it back into light.
What is that, before I go back to Simon, what is that previous idea and what is the story that you're telling at this men's event?
Okay, well, we're bringing 2 collections together into one. So the one collection was telling a story of individuality and albinoism, the freckles, and kind of embracing being different. And the second one was kind of just a summer collection, which was based on amalgamation of cultures. We're bringing all of that together into one piece, which are going to be kind of art-based conceptual pieces in the form of an installation.
Simon, when Genevieve talks like that and describes what she's going to put on that runway, it really does come back to your point that we have evolved so much when we think of menswear and also how men perceive fashion.
Yes, that's correct. And, sometimes I hear what the designers are doing and I'm consistently blown away, and especially to watch how some of these brands develop. And in the background, I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into these collections. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of development in what they do, but also it's got to be commercially viable for the designers, because at the end of the day, these all are businesses and they need to support the designers, yet each is incredibly individual. So I'm always really, really impressed, and at the end of every season, we look back and we can't believe just how far forward we move.
I've been doing this show for a while, and I remember a couple of years ago we've been talking about how men perceive fashion and how the industry perceive men from a commercial spending perspective. And I know that there was always been this focus on women because women are actually the drivers when it comes to shopping. But your conversation 5 years ago when you started this event, it must have been a very different conversation to the one we're having now.
Very much so. You know, when we started, our original goal was really just to try and educate the South African consumer that there were designers across all genres to meet all kinds of tastes, whether you were really just looking for a well-made, locally made shirt right through to dressing a little bit differently or wearing something quite conceptual. And over the years, the interest has really grown. And what we're quite proud of is that the rest of the world is really starting to look at what is happening, especially on platforms such as Menswear Week or Lagos Fashion and Design Week. And they're starting to really realize that we are globally competitive in terms of design, and there are a lot of challenges before we're exporting huge numbers and becoming global names. But I think each season we get closer and closer to that. And our goal is not to solve everything overnight, but to create a sustainable industry, and one that the South African and African consumer really looks at to want to support local, because if we educate them that it's available, slowly we can increase that demand.
Well, Simon, we're going to wrap it, but thank you for getting us out of jeans and T-shirts. That, of course, is the founder and creative director of the South African Men's Fashion Week. He goes by the name of Simon Diner, and he's joined by fashion designer Genevieve Lyons, talking to us about the upcoming event. It will be running from the 1st to the 4th of February at the Palms Lifestyle Center. So for guys like me who likes jeans and T-shirts, this is probably the event.
Thank you.
Let's take an ad break. Don't get away.